Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing a review of a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2013, directed by Ashley Cahill, and this film is called Charm. It's also known as Random Acts of Violence, so if you can't find it under one title, please look for it under the other. So the story to Charm, it follows this guy who is disgusted with what New York has become. He sees New York as too clean. He wants to relive the days where New York was a very dirty place, where it was very dangerous to walk the streets. He is disgusted that there are no more pimps, there is no more sort of people mugging each other. So he's a very deranged individual, and he wants to get New York back to where he believes it should be, and that is by committing random acts of violence. So he gets these people to document his make this documentary about him committing these acts, and then he starts to justify it by ranting about why these people needed to die. So it's a very morbid idea this guy has, but this guy is very unhinged. So he goes along, and then it all adds up to a very thrilling climax that will make you think and will also shock you. So prevent myself from giving away too much, that's as far as I'm going with synopsis. Please go out there and see this film for yourself if you want to know how it ends up. Now my thoughts on Charm. This movie is very reminiscent of a Belgian-French film called Man Bites Dog. So if you're familiar with that movie, you will get an overwhelming sense that this is a renewed version of that film, an English-speaking version. So I really like the idea of a serial killer documenting his work through the form of a documentary. Now it's very morbid, it's a very realistic portrayal of crime. I thought some of the scenes of violence were very, very hard-hitting. In fact, it made me feel very uncomfortable. Now it's not overly gory, it's not overly brutal, but it's just very realistic in the way it's happening. Like, there's some people getting stabbed and you think to yourself, wow, that looked very real. And that has put me into a level of discomfort that you don't get with many other films. So I thought the sense of realism is the film's strong point, and you get an overwhelming sense that this is a genuine horror experience. And I was expecting to hate this film because it was found footage, and it just felt like, before I saw the film, and when I saw the trailer, I thought that it felt like a film that was just going to be violence for violence sake, and that it wasn't really going to have a high production value, that the acting wasn't going to be that good, and the script really wasn't going to be that good. And unfortunately, with lower budget films, the lower budget curse, it basically has an effect on whether it be the acting, the script, the cinematography. There's always one part, if not many other parts, but there's at least one part of a low budget film where it lacks. But I was really surprised to see that Charm doesn't really fall under any curse in the low budget department, because I thought this was a really well made film, and it was a lot better than I was expecting it to be. Now, number one, the acting is very good from the main character. Now I believe the main character has something to do with the production of the film. I don't know whether he was the director, but I know he was involved, and it felt like this guy was genuine. It felt like his acting was very realistic, and I thought that the things that he says are very thought-provoking, but at the same time really disturbing. So you've got that overwhelming sense of being very uncomfortable while you're watching what's going on. I thought the script was really, really solid, and that's ultimately what brings the film to the front, is that the script is very witty, and I wasn't expecting to laugh as much as I did. Now I would say that it borders on being a dark comedy, but the script is very smart. It will make you think, and you gain a connection to this guy. Although he's doing these horrible things, you see a likable quality in this guy, and that is genuinely what a psychopath would do. Ted Bundy, he had likable qualities. That's why he'd gain the trust of people. And this guy genuinely feels like a serial killer, where you could easily be friends with this guy. You could befriend him. He didn't come across as overly weird. He was eccentric, but he wasn't a weirdo where you'd feel to yourself, I don't feel safe around this bloke. So he had a very genuine feel to him that a lot of serial killers have had in the past. Now, obviously, I've never met a serial killer, but it's always the same thing, that these serial killers who get away with all this stuff, they have a charm to them. They're very likable individuals, and they could basically pass off as an everyday person. And the killer in this film really does that, and I felt that in some parts you really like this guy because he's got a personality, but in other parts he's obviously very unhinged and he's a very dangerous person to be around. But you can sense that these people who gain a liking to him are in grave danger, because it is understandable how these people would connect to this guy, and it makes it scary because there are very real people out there that are like this, and this is how they get away with so much. And I just thought the character of the serial killer was really interesting, and it doesn't go too much into the details about him as a person. It doesn't need to tell you why he's become a serial killer. You just know what his intentions are, and those intentions are very, very brutal. So at the end of the film, I love the ending. I thought that was a great way to cap it off. I'm not going to tell you what happens at the end, but as I said, it does make you think, because it does show you society and what society has become. And this guy is trying to clean up society in the worst way imaginable, but it still makes you think about what we take for granted and the things that we expect other people to do for us without really even commanding respect. And so this guy goes through these things. He's talking about, after each kill he talks about something, and you think to yourself, yeah, okay, I can understand that, but you didn't really need to kill that person. So it's that kind of film that is just very surprising, and I wasn't expecting to like it half as much as I did. So it is a low budget film, but I would still highly recommend you go out there and check out Charm, because it is a very good film. It is a mockumentary type of movie. I really like the idea of that. It's not as good as Man Bites Dog, but it's still very you know, worthwhile of your attention. And it's definitely, you know, it's a decent way to spend an hour and 20 or 30 minutes. So definitely go out there and see Charm. It is a welcome surprise, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.